Hello. Hi, gorgeous. Hi, chickpea. Are you also feeling like one of the easiest low hanging fruit on your overeating is guzzling up leftovers? So you eat a proper meal in front of everybody, and then right as soon as everybody else is fucked off, so that they can do their own stuff, you're left with the clearing up, and you might as well finish up, right? I'm Laura Lloyd. I'm a weight loss life coach, and leftovers have been a big deal for me. So, let me share with you a little bit why talking about leftovers is really time well spent. Number one, it's one of the easiest hanging fruit. I've said that twice, haven't I? Low hanging fruit. When I think about all of the habits that make up my overeating, leftovers is one of the most pickable apples. Is I can get on top of that one because it's so visible to me. Um, Number two, it's really a lot to do with awareness and noticing your family's messages that you've been given. It's one of the easiest places to start to see how your beliefs are influencing your behaviors. Because using a cognitive behavioral therapy model, we know that our behaviors, our habits, are actually just the tip of the iceberg, and they're driven by our thoughts and feelings. So, in this little vid, we're going to think about why our families and our conditioning has had such influence on us. And especially if you're in the clean plate club and feel like you cannot not finish the portion you've been given, this is going to be helpful for you. We're also going to talk about why after dinner is such a sort of wobbly moment emotionally for so many of us. And I don't know if this is in your awareness right now, but if it isn't, it's going to be really helpful for you to think that through. And thirdly, we're going to talk about what self-coaching is and how you can learn more about that process. All right, then. So in my family, waste was a big, big deal. We didn't have a lot of food and we didn't have a big food budget at home. So the idea of wasting food was really, there was a lot of morality attached to that in our family, but also a kind of, my parents were very ethical eaters and they were concerned about the planet, the planet's resources. And their idea was that it was a sort of disrespect to nature to take food and then just throw it away. Nature had worked really, really hard to make this food, and that was churlish of one to then throw it away. It took a huge mindset shift for me to realize that my first loyalty is to my body, and that actually it's not benefiting anybody for me to take on more fuel than my body can use. That's it. If if that food is surplus to requirements, I can't make it of value by eating it. Now, I can invest in lots of lovely little glass containers and store even quite silly bits of leftovers, because it does happen that I'm still quite attached to food when it's left over. But if I put it in the fridge, sometimes 2 days later I come back and it's past its best. And I'm like, you know what, I'm really comfortable to say goodbye to it at this point. I'm over it. But at that moment, especially if I've recently cooked it and I've invested my creativity in the cooking of it and my love for my family in the cooking of it, I feel like this food has got a lot of me in it. I'm not really ready to say goodbye to it at that point. Have a think, chickpea. How were you brought up around leftovers? It doesn't determine what you're going to do from here on in. It just means, are you carrying around a bunch of messages and especially morality around leftovers that actually you could reframe right now and think about differently in order to put yourself and your relationship with your body tip top priority? Now, that moment after dinner is quite a pivotal moment in my day. Dinner feels like the sort of high point, the bit that I've been looking forward to. the big reward for all the hard work of the day, the moment when the family is gathered. And it feels like from there on in, it's like downhill from there. Now, if you have little kids, it might be the dread of the after dinner routine, trying to get everybody onto the bedtime bus. That can be quite stressful. It's not a done deal, and your time is not your own. It's not always like, as a mum, or as a dad, like after dinner is like, relax. I always remember when I was growing up that after dinner, my dad would go and sit in a certain chair and throw a tennis ball for our dog into the washing machine. That was his little after dinner routine. Very relaxing, very fun. I don't feel like I take that time after a meal. I feel like I'm straight into stacking the dishwasher, even before I've finished, really. And so just noticing, is there dread of the evening ahead? And if you don't have a family, have you got, like, how are you feeling at the end of the meal? I think that's what I'd like to ask you, Chickpea. Are you feeling like, ooh, now we just have to put everything in order, close the kitchen and relax? Or are you thinking like, and now I'm lonely? Or are you thinking, and now I've got to do all that other work that I didn't get done earlier, and I'm going to have to prepare for tomorrow? Like, what have you got in store for you then? And I think that's really important to notice our feelings towards the evening ahead, because sometimes I can find myself eating as a last ditch attempt to kind of get something to get me through it. That's my mentality. That's completely false logic, but it is my mentality sometimes. Or kind of consoling myself about that emotion. Or sometimes like not wanting this good bit of the day to be over and for the kind of work of the evening to begin. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with any of you? I'd love to hear in the comments. Finally, I want to mention self-coaching, because when you're answering these questions for yourself, you're beginning a process which is known as self-coaching. You're asking yourself questions and you're responding with curiosity. You're bringing your awareness to the situation and you're trying to discover, well, what is it actually I'm doing? So instead of just kicking yourself every day, like, oh, God, I just shouldn't have eaten those leftovers, you're actually entering into a process of curiosity. Curiosity is the antidote to judgment, self-judgment, right? So we just understanding, like, well, why does this happen every day? Why is this serving me in some way? What's my emotional landscape doing at that time? Now, if you join me for the podcast episode of Hi Food, I'm Home, season 1, which is all about leftovers and after dinner overeating, I will actually show you live a self-coaching process. Well, it's not live, it's a recorded podcast. What I mean is in real time. You are going through an actual after dinner situation with me, and I am telling you what's in my brain. So you actually get to see and be with me while I self-coach through it. And you will understand then how that process of reflection can be so beneficial to you to get more awareness around this tricky after dinner moment. Join me for that podcast. You can find me on Apple, and there's a link in the show notes. You can find me on Spotify. Make sure you follow the podcast or subscribe to it, whatever it's called on that channel. Apple call it follow now. Follow it, because then you get notified when the after dinner overeating episode drops, and you can find out all about how to self-coach around leftovers. I'll see you there. Lots of love.